Hello, it's Matthew here from the Nations of Sanity project. I'm just doing a quick video on the difference between a bad idea and a crime. And more to the point, the distinction that needs to be made between what we should do, as in what is a good idea based on our differing subjective opinions on what might or might not be a good idea, and what we have the right to do as self-owning free individuals. Now, for anyone who doesn't know who I am or what this project is about, the Nations of Sanity project is built on the assertion that the only way to create a truly free society is to establish the non-aggression principle as the law through a universal peace agreement. Now, for anyone who doesn't know what the non-aggression principle is, it's the moral principle that comes from the concept of individual self-ownership, which is just the idea that every individual has right and responsibility over only their own selves. And basically, our assertion is that that basic principle can objectively define what is and is not a crime. Because if we all accept that we all have right over only our own selves, then things like rape, theft, murder, assault, and slavery can all be identified objectively as crimes. They're self-evident that they would be crimes if we accept the basic premise that everyone has right over themselves. Now, based on that premise, it's important that when we're talking about what we should and shouldn't do, whether we're talking on an individual level or as a society or any kind of collective, there's an important distinction that needs to be made, because we can have discussions and debates and we can agree to disagree over what is the right decision for us to make over a particular choice, whether we should do this or that or the other. But the problem is often that debate gets confused with the debate over what we have the right to do, what is within our right as self-owning individuals to do. It's pretty simple to pass through, but we seem to lose sight of it. So what the Nations of Sanity really tries to emphasize is that distinction. I mean, that's obviously the distinction we're trying to draw with this project. We're trying to create an objective standard for defining crime so that we can provide an objective standard for defining law that can define our societies and create a truly free society where everyone is truly free and has the truly equal right over themselves to live their life as they choose, with the only restriction on our freedom being that we don't have the right to interfere or violate that exact same freedom of other people. And as long as we don't lose sight of that concept, then we shouldn't lose sight of the distinction between a bad idea and a crime. It may be a bad idea to smoke crack cocaine. I think most people, including myself, would fall on the side of saying that for most people, that's going to be a bad idea. But that doesn't make it a crime. And it is something that you have the right to do. Now, just because you have the right to do something, that doesn't mean you should do it, but it also doesn't necessarily mean that you should not. Whether we should or shouldn't do these things when we're talking within the realms of what we have the right to do is something that is up to us to decide as self-owning individuals. And as self-owning individuals, we bear the brunt of the consequences, because self-ownership, in addition to the right over ourselves, also involves the responsibility over ourselves. The right over yourself gives you ownership of your actions, in the sense that if you create property, you own that property. But it also gives you ownership over your actions in the sense that if you commit a crime, then you are guilty of that crime and must face the consequences of that. So anyway, I don't want to make a long video, and just wanted to really emphasize something that's getting lost in a lot of conversations when people talk about, oh, should we do this and should we do that? The more important question that needs to be addressed first is what we have the right to do. And does somebody have the right to take drugs? Yes. Is it a good idea? Maybe not. Depending on the circumstances, maybe it is. But the point is we need to be clear on where our freedom begins and ends. And it's very simple. It's based on self-ownership. Everyone has a right over themselves. So a very low resolution way of summarizing this is to just think, if what you're doing definitely doesn't hurt anybody else, then you can be pretty self-assured that what you're doing is not a crime and no one has the right to stop you. Now, whether it's a good idea or not is another conversation. And that is why we need to segregate the conversation over what we have the right to do and what we should do if we want to achieve certain goals. Anyway, I hope that's all clear. Thank you for listening.